sweatpants? Who the hell's buying this? I'm Joe. I've been in manufacturing for over a decade, and I've overseen the production of millions of products all over the world. And on this show, we take apart pieces from your favorite brands, see if the quality is there, and I'll let you know if it's worth your hard-earned money. This is Industry Secrets. We're back. This is Industry Secrets. What do you got for me this week? It's from Essence. What is Fear of God. Okay. You guys have been requesting Fear of God for a while. I guess this is part of their main line. Forearm sweat. Okay, let's open this up. It's a sweatpant. Well, let's see here. This is from Essence, Fear of God forearm sweatpant in black. How much was this?
1,000 Canadian.
What? Oh. What? These are heavyweight sweatpants with a somewhat vintage wash. We have a mainline tag. It is a like craft paper with a raised rubber for Fear of God. This is their 8th collection, made in USA. This garment has undergone a special wash treatment, resulting in variation of shading and color. Each garment is processed individually by hand. These variations are intended to add to the unique characteristics of the garment. Okay, we have a seam down the center, kind of drawing a lot of more kind of dressy dress pant vibes. I think it kind of emulates a pleat in the front. There is no side seam, so side and the back are actually one panel. It's kind of unique. So when you actually don't have a side seam, a lot of times when you are making a pant, you're going to join the pocket at the side seam. But when you don't have that side seam, you're now gonna have to make a slit in the fabric, and it's not gonna be as sturdy because now you're stopping the seam kind of in the middle instead of being able to join it to a serge. You'll see right here, because the pocket bag doesn't have a side seam to attach to, you're now having this floating element here that unless you bar tack, that's not gonna be that strong, that seam. And let me see if I can actually pop this here. Yeah. Do you see how like, it's that first seam, that first stitch on both sides probably, it's so easy to pop that just because the chosen construction method. What I would have done, bar tack over this, you would have completely prevented that. I can see a lot of puckering here on the main seam. This is kind of your main design element that differentiates it from a basic sweatpant, and for it to have this amount of puckering, I would say, especially $1,000, I've said this time and time again, a brand can charge whatever the hell they want for a piece of clothing, but at $1,000, it needs to be damn near perfect, especially for a sweatpant. So, who's buying $1,000 sweatpants? Guys, don't buy $1,000 sweatpants. You don't need to buy $1,000 sweatpants. That'd be like spending $500 on a sock or something. It's just, you're basically paying for this at this point. Look at the care label here, Fear of God. Oh, I like these like rubberized plastic care labels. You see a lot of athletic brands use these. The problem with these is that if the user puts it in like a high heat wash, these actually will typically melt over time. They kind of like scrumple up and turn into like a melted piece of plastic. But Fear of God, made in the United States. Self fabric is 100% cotton, lining 100% cotton. They're probably talking about the pocket bag here. Draw cord, 100% cotton. Recommended dry clean or wash cold. This is something that I've seen this with a Miri, and now I'm seeing this with this. Who the hell is gonna dry clean their sweatpants? I think that's just absolutely ridiculous for a brand to put that as one of their requirements. I've seen this happen where if they put dry clean only, one, it makes it feel fancier because it's dry clean, but two, you get to kind of remove yourself as a brand from the quality control process because you can say, hey, you ruined the garment because you put it through a wash and a dryer, which as sweatpants, you're gonna be putting it through a wash and a dryer. So when I see that, it really goes to show that the technical development of the brand just isn't there because that's just an easy cop-out for something that's not going to last. You know actually who know a lot about this?
My name's Zach. I'm a 4th generation dry cleaner. I own Jeeves, New York with my dad, Jerry. He's got 40 years of dry cleaning experience, and together we make content online to teach people more about dry cleaning, but also how to care for their clothes.
I sent over some of the Fear of God sweatpants, and well, it said it basically highly suggested dry clean only. So when you see a label like that, what do you think as the person who ultimately has to receive that garment and take care of it?
I think two things, just looking at the care label now. I mean, they can be completely fine in just at-home wash. Like they said, they noted that it should be just cold water wash, normal cycle. I mean, that to me tells you really everything you need to know about cleaning it. Cold water is going to prevent fading. It's going to be much less aggressive atmosphere for the garment when it goes through that really aggressive cleaning process. But to me, that dry clean only or recommended dry clean tagline is kind of just like offloading the responsibility to me, which is really tricky because, again, to me, that means more give it to a dry cleaner and they'll figure out what's best. You know, we have something like wet cleaning processes where we use water to clean clothes, but they're just a little bit fancier than what you have at home. But there's absolutely no reason why these need to be dry cleaned, in my opinion.
It's like a way for brands to shield themselves.
Yeah, exactly. It's something it's a really fine line. I think the dry cleaner is an extremely easy person to blame for just about everything, which is really challenging. So I think what we do is extremely difficult and requires an enormous amount of expertise, but we do rely on the manufacturers to test their garments and tell us what we need to do. I'm not sure if that leather trim is going to bleed or not. I don't know if it's real or faux. Hopefully they described it on their care label correctly. Like you said, it definitely increases the value of a garment by saying, oh, this can only be touched by an expert. But I can't tell you the amount of nylon Prada bucket hats I've touched that say dry clean only, and you literally can just chuck it in the washer and it's completely fine.
Zach, where can the audience find you and learn more about actually garment care?
Just about everywhere besides Twitter. So TikTok, Instagram, YouTube, it's just Jeeves_NY. Yeah, we try and post a couple times a week just about everything related to garment care.
So when you look at this pant, and obviously the main design element here is the front seam, there's a lot of puckering here. And when I look at the pocket, because it's white in here, this tells me that this has been garment dyed, which means they sewed the garment, they garment dyed it. And that's why all this puckering is here, because during the garment dyeing process, it's shrunk up. What they could have done instead is if they piece dyed or fabric dyed it, then actually sewed it, and then you can do additional washes afterwards, and you could have avoided this entire seam here. But I expect they're not doing a lot of volume, which is why they garment dyed this. And it's really long. What size is this again?
Small.
What? I guess it's designed to be very slouchy at the bottom, but typically for a small pant, you're gonna have like 6 inches off of this. And then we have some sort of pleather or rubber main label here.
Leather, according to the website.
There's no way. I can see, there's no way this is leather. Yeah, this isn't, unless it's coated on the outside. You can see here actually open this up here. Clearly on the outside, it is not leather because it is a synthetic material. And on the inside, it's almost like like a felt on the inside. So we saw earlier that the outside of this main label is synthetic, and we're gonna double check that now with a fire test. And what we're gonna be doing is we're going to be lighting this on fire. If it burns into ashes, that means it's of organic material. If it starts globbing up and melting, that means it is 100% synthetic. You can see here that's bubbling up and it is now all melting together, which means it is 100% synthetic. Fear God, why are you saying this is a real leather tag when it's not? But there's the main branding. And now these are $20 sweatpants. Let's take a look at the inside here. The drawstring obviously is going to be added in afterwards. We have the Fear God woven on the back. Man, this is so balled up already. Got some loose thread in here. Loose thread is from where they've attached the woven label over here. You can see it kind of poking out the back. We have some ABC technology here with the gusset panel. So when you are making a fleece, all fleece starts off as a French terry, and you basically take the loops at the back and you go through a process called napping, and you basically break up those loops and you raise the pile, and they end up shaving it to get a fleece. And something that's very popular in recent years is semi-napped terry, where it's not a full fleece, but it's kind of in between a French terry and a fleece. But if you look at this, for a brand new garment, look at how many balls are already forming on here. If you were to be buying $20 sweatpants and this is what it looks like on the inside, I think you'd be quite upset. At $1,000, I think you need to be downright angry. This is like, this fabric's actively deteriorating. When I see something like this, what this tells me is the brand did the ideation process, they did their sampling, but they never really wash tested this garment and actually checked like, hey, how long is this $1,000 sweatpant going to actually last? You see it over here too, lots of loose thread. It's as simple as doing this when you're in the factory. That's all the cleanup the factory would have had to do to make this garment like feel finished. See, there you go. Now they're $2,000 pair of sweatpants. You know, one of our first videos we did a really long, I guess almost a year ago now, was the essentials. And a lot of people actually called out saying, hey, this is essentials. You guys wouldn't do this to Fear of God mainline. And look, we're here doing it to Fear of God mainline, and a lot of the same quality issues that we saw in that essentials are still present here. To trim off all those loose thread, I guess more thread here. To trim off all that loose thread would take the worker 10 minutes if they really went deep in on this. And if you think of, let's say they're even being paid $20, $25, $30 an hour. If they spent 10 minutes finishing this garment, it would have made it feel so much more complete, and it wouldn't have made a difference in terms of the margin when you're selling this for $1,000. So the pocket bag material here, it's actually a twill, which is a woven. And with any woven, unless you close off the seam and you actually hold that fabric back, or you turn it and fold it over itself, this is what's going to happen with any woven. It will start to fray just because it's basically like a basket weave. And once you remove one layer, there's nothing holding back the other layers from coming out. And this is something that would happen in the wash itself. Once that starts going and it starts propagating, now you're getting loose fibers, you're getting all these frayed edges, and then soon that pocket bag's integrity will actually, be diminished. Yeah, it's just not the greatest workmanship. I do love how deep these pocket bags are though. So I give that to them. I hate when brands have shallow pocket bags, and I have a big phone, but this, oh, what is this? Free lint! Imagine you just spent $1,000 on a pair of sweatpants. Well, I guess I did spend $1,000 on a pair of sweatpants, and I have all this lint. Let me, probably on the other pocket as well. It's actually mind-blowing. Jerry, you've driven a lot of designs, and I think you've pushed the industry forward in lots of ways, but whoever's handling your manufacturing, this is supposed to be the best representation of Fear of God. This is supposed to be the best representation of what they can produce, and this is what you're getting for that price, which I think is absolutely ridiculous and completely unacceptable. There's the strip there. All right, so I wouldn't be too worried about the fleece itself, because with any fleece, you're gonna have this kind of lint, and typically it comes off in the dryer. But I guess in this case, you can't put it in the dryer, so you're gonna blame your dry cleaner for this, I guess. But all these balls here definitely should not be there for a product at this price point. So we're gonna actually cut these up next. But before we do, be sure to like, comment, subscribe, because now we have $1,000 sweatpants to cut up. And my team has committed to us cutting up Canada Goose and Chrome Hearts. So I gotta pay off some bills. And hang tag here. Got the damask woven here for Fear of God. Let's take the drawstring out first. This is one of the iconic branding elements, Fear of God. really long drawstrings, cotton, bar tacked at the end. You know, you get that kind of frayed edge, but it won't propagate. Main care labels. You're printing these on a roll as a manufacturer, and it's gonna be automatically cut, and then they'll just stack these as a bundle. Open up the waistband here. And as I do this, you're gonna really be able to see the garment dyeing process. And you'll see, you definitely can hear that. You'll see here the main elastic that was serged on. So you pre-cut this length and then you attach it with a serger or overlock seam to the waistband, and then it's folded over, and then they did a 2-needle cover stitch to finish it off and basically hold that down. This is actually a great way to show you what I was talking about for the fabric earlier. My initial thought was that they chose to have a brushed terry to get a little bit of that napping effect. But now that I've opened this waistband up, this shows me that they started off as a full fleece here, which is this fabric. And through the washing process, they've actually just linted off so much of that lint that it basically looked like a slightly napped terry, but in reality, it's just a garment that's gone through the dryer a lot, and a lot of that lint has been removed or kept in the pockets. But this is what the fabric looks like underneath the waistband, and that's basically what the fabric started off as. And another thing you can see here now, you see a lot of white, especially in the threads and these seams right here. That's a sign that it's garment dye, because often when you're garment dyeing, sometimes the dye doesn't penetrate all the way through. So very thick and bulky seams, it actually won't go through all the way. I think the one brand I saw like really good garment dyeing from was Stone Island. It penetrated all the way through the fabric, but here it's okay at best. I'll separate the elastic here. So you can see the waistband here. It's fairly small compared to even the waist of the garment itself. This is what you do if you want a gathered effect on your sweatpants. If you want a more clean aesthetic, then you would have this a little bit more open, but you wouldn't get this bunching up and gathering that you get. That's quite iconic. So now we are going to take apart the pocket bag here. There is pocket bag 1. This is honestly giving me Vulture's vibe when we reviewed those sweatpants. It's definitely not as bad. With the gusset, with pants this loose, I don't really see a massive functional boost by having a gusset here, but it's definitely an additional design element at least. Fear of God technology. You know what, it's more like, this is a really cheap, low quality fleece. Like this is a fleece where if you were to buy something like this and you would wear it, the moment you take it off, it just leaves all that lint on you, which if the brand actually piece dyed, so fabric dyed it and washed it properly, that wouldn't happen with these. These are crazy long sweatpants, but I can see them being quite comfy being that long. Do we have space on the table? We have the right leg panel here. We have the left leg panel here. We have the front panel here. What was the other front panel? We have the gusset. We have 1 pocket bag, 2 pocket bags, waistband elastic, drawstring. We have the reason why you're paying $1,000, the damask woven, main hang tags. I do like the little rubber element. They did a collab with Adidas for Fear of God Athletics, which is also crazy expensive, and they did that same branding. You have your lint. That's about it. So typically what we would do now is I would get the weight of this in the GSM, but seeing how much of the lint has come off of this, the starting weight of this fabric isn't going to be representative of what the weight is now. But what we can do is see how much lint they gave you in the pockets. Let's put a fresh sheet in there. Zero that out. 16 grams of lint in your pockets. When I look at a garment like this, it has not been finished perfectly for the weight. And I've said it before, I'll say it again. A brand can charge whatever they want for a garment like this, and ultimately the market dictates whether people or not buy it. I think Fear of God mainline is really there and positioned to drive sales for essentials. When I look at the construction of this garment, is there something here that justifies a 10x markup over essentials items? I would say no. There's nothing special in terms of the material here. The trims and components, a lot of them, this would be the same on the essentials. It would just say essentials instead of fear of God. I'm struggling to find a kind of purpose for this garment in the industry, other than being that halo product that drives essential sales. At the end of the day, if you're wearing a sweatpant, you need to be able to wash it in your laundry. It makes absolute zero sense to dry clean a pair of sweatpants. It's not a great fabric to start off with. The construction here, we saw a lot of loose threads. We saw a lot of lint in the pockets. These are things that when you're selling a garment for this price point, and if your goal is to actually drive sales at this price point, you're gonna be paying attention to the product, because the people who buy this are going to be paying attention to these things because they demand certain levels of quality at this price point. But when you are using this purely of a positioning play where you don't really care about the quality of this because your main purpose is not to drive sales for this, it's really just there to drive sales for essentials. I would say this being made in the US with all these components here, it really is gonna be dependent on the supply chain, but like, yeah, I could see this costing $25, maybe 30, because it's garment dyed and they're not probably doing a lot of volume of this. If you were to make this overseas, something with this quality of fabric, with this level of finishing, probably costs you like $9, $10. If you made it in higher volume, you can probably get this down to $7, $8. There's nothing inherently special about this garment. Their other items might be better, but this is not a good representation of what a brand should be trying to sell at this specific price point. Please don't buy $1,000 sweatpants, guys. You do not need it. A lot of it is about the psychological aspect of letting others know that you are wearing Fear of God mainline, but you're much better off spending your money either getting multiple pieces if you really want stuff from Fear of God or essentials, or just looking elsewhere. Because ultimately, no one really gives a shit what sweatpants you're wearing when you're at home sitting on the couch watching TV. So when it comes to the fabric, I think you guys have seen a lot of the flaws with the fabric, how it started off as a fleece. This is something you'd get at like Walmart in terms of napping, very low pile fleece. I'm gonna have to give it a 4 out of 10. The choice to garment dye this and not actually piece dye it has led to, I would say, a compromised product. And again, at this price point, they could have done a lot with this fabric. And I've seen items that are a quarter of this price, 1/10 of this price with better fabric to start off. Next up is going to be workmanship. Fuck, like a 3? No, like it's not as bad as the Rude. There is some finishing details that should have been done. There's some threads that aren't trimmed. This really should have been cleaned out of the pockets. I'm gonna have to give this a 4 out of 10. So when it comes to the attention to detail in this design, there's nothing innovative that's being done here. People are gonna like this elongated aesthetic. It's quite comfy. I call it like comfy core. But I would give this a 6, but given the fact that they don't even believe in their own garment enough to put it in a laundry, I'm gonna have to dock it to 5. Are my fingers turning black?
They look like it. Yeah, actually they are getting darker, yeah.
So this is what's called color fastness and crocking. A big part of them not actually letting you put it through the washing machine is this dye in this garment hasn't been fixed properly enough for it to not come off. And for my fingertips to start turning black, 100% they are. That tells me that they didn't fix this color enough in the process. And if you wash this draw cord is gonna go black as well. Whatever fabric was, minus another point, because this is something that is fairly basic when it comes to garment testing and wearability, is the crocking and color fastness of it. And then when it comes to value, I gave. I'm gonna fucking put it in. I'm gonna put it in the same category. It's rude. Like 1 point is because it exists and it's something you can actually wear, and 2 is because ultimately this brand does mean something to a lot of people. So that's why I want to give it a 2 out of 10. But don't buy this, guys. This is not something you need in your wardrobe. So for the final score, you can take a look at it here. Don't buy these. These are not designed with the consumer in mind. They're designed to drive the brand. That's it for this episode. Like, comment, subscribe so my staff can keep buying very expensive garments for me to cut up. And until next time. If you guys want to see more behind the scenes secrets on the fashion industry and learn more about how to create products and brands, be sure to like, comment, subscribe, and check out these videos. It's actually like really fucking insane.